There are things that bring hindrances. What are these things? Have you not seen great men of God that was seated and grace, and the only thing they have is, I was among the people that started the church. But then when you look at them, the way they talk, the way they do things, you cannot see the implication of the grace. There are things that hinder flow of grace. Please write that. There are things that can truly hinder flow of grace. Ikabaki, the only thing you talk about are the number of years you have been in that ministry. And that is failure. Ikabaki, the only thing you have to show is remembering how you used to do in 1963. Ikabaki, the only thing is, I remember when we were doing fundraising in 20 years ago. And the people have already moved. Things have really changed. Praise the name of the Lord. Hindrances to impartation. Number one, I want to call it proximity. Proximity. Closeness. Closeness. I'm very close to my pastor. That sounds like a good statement. It's a snare. It's a trap. It sounds like a good statement. I'm talking to leaders. It's a snare. It's a trap. Your pastor is not your friend. It's not your peer. It's not your friend. It's not your peer. On that point, allow me to say there are two things that can bring blindness to a person. Two things can bring blindness to a person. Number one is excess light. If you stood in front of me and I blow full torch on you, you close your eyes. Too much access to unnecessary information can bring blindness to your spirit, particularly if you have not grown. I'm not saying don't walk with your pastor. I'm talking about mazoeano. I'm talking about familiarity. In case you didn't know, Pastor Ada is not your friend. It's not your. He may be friendly. He may be friendly, but not your friend. Ref is not your friend. He may be friendly. He is not your. Let's start that. In fact, let us settle that. Write it. He may be friendly, but he is not your friend. And that addresses those people who gather a lot of information. They are given access to pastors' lives. And they know everything about, they know what they ate last night, they know what he likes, they know what he doesn't like. It's a dangerous spot to be. It's not a honor. It's a dangerous place to be. Especially if you want to become anything. Especially if you want to become Uriah. But then Uriah was a conscious man. I want you to understand David is the king. Uriah is just an army man. Joab is the captain of the armies. So Joab sends him home, says the king is asking for you. So David is a cunning king that wants to lay a trap for Uriah. Uriah does not do it. He says, I will deal with you. He writes a letter of his execution and gives him, go take it to Joab. I want to show something. Please follow me. Uriah takes the letter to Joab. The letter says, make sure that you put Uriah in the front line where the battle is hot so that he can be stricken and die. What a wicked king. Joab, being a good captain, royal captain, does that. And reports Uriah is dead. When the battle is over and they go home, remember Joab has the letter. So he has what? Say evidence. He has evidence. When Joab goes home, he notices there are developments here. Hiya. So the wife of David that just died, the wife of Uriah is now with David. He says, so this was the trick. So this is what the thing. So Joab was an informed man. He knew what all this was about. He knew it was an execution. Are we together? I hope you know the captain of an army is a very strong man. By that time, he could have called all the soldiers, military men, and say, come here. I have just realized that we are going to die one by one and lose our wives to this wicked king. And when they begin to argue, he would tell them, I have evidence. Evidence. We don't see anywhere in that scripture where Joab said a thing. he kept quiet. The child is born, the child dies. All these things are unfolding, and Joab kept quiet. With a lot of access, with a lot of information in his hands, in fact, with the physical evidence, he said nothing. Praise the name of the Lord. Now, let's transform that context, bring it to our church today, and particularly on this altar, because that is where we are. If it was you with that kind of evidence, if it was you with that kind of evidence, ukoshua ungegather wanaume wote pale kwa kona uambie wanaume kuko nini? You know, the way we gather evidence and we stand and we say, I can prove it. I can prove it. Na unakata kikundi chako cha 100 people and you say, let us start church behind there. We are also anointed. Are we not anointed? We are also anointed. Did you see Joab do that? He didn't do that. Joab was a candid leader. That's how leaders do things. Leaders cover their leader. Leaders cover their, write that in your notes. Leaders cover their leader. Leaders cover their, irrespective of the evidence. And the child was there. A normal human being that can be seen. And Joab, I'm sure, could look at the child and say, this is David. He said nothing. Nobody in the army knew the gossip. Hakuna mtu alisambaza mushene. There is even a possibility he did not tell the wife, because you know when you tell the wives, the wife will tell a wife of another. And another, you know what women, we thank God for women. Women are blessed with sharing in the form of testimony. My sis, I have a testimony. And do not tell another. Do not tell, you are the only one that I am telling. You are the only one I'm telling because I trust you. And after that we will pray about it. And there is never prayer. There is never prayer. It turns to gossip. Before long, the church is into 4 pieces. Before long, the church is into 4 pieces. We don't see Joab saying anything about that matter. How can you go? How far can you go in covering the nakedness of your pastor? That's where I was coming to. Our pastor or your pastor may not necessarily go to that kind of extent. But then, there are those small things. There are those small things you know about his children, you can know about his wife, you can know about his this. You can know, because there are people, in case you didn't know, there are people, they didn't drop from heaven. They didn't drop from heaven. They came from somewhere. And everybody has their past. Even about your departmental head, even for your departmental head, there are those things that you know. Hata wengine waliwajua kabla waokoke. And those are the things you keep pulling out. Every time akijaribu correct unamwambia kumbuka vile tulikuwa high school. You want to remind them. Those are things that you kept, is that every time you use them as a weapon against them. We don't see Joab mentioning that matter again. We don't see Joab mentioning that matter again. How far can you go? And those are things that show how much you can benefit from the grace of that person. Everybody wants to become pastor's associate. Everybody wants that. To me, it doesn't look pretty. To me, is nothing really that I'll look for. Everybody wants to be the right hand man, you know. Everybody wants to be that close person. But how guarded is your spirit? How much can you take in? How much can you take in? And of truth, it will not be hard the next door. Praise the name of the Lord. I want us to linger around the story of Joab. That's where I want us to linger. Some of you here will even have a small dream. A small dream like this will be enough to take 3 sisters and you leave church. Small dream. And the truth is, it didn't even come from God. Small dream. I dreamt that pastor had 5 horns. So lazima akuwe ameingia Illuminati. And you begin to pick shallow people like, you know, small things. Yeah. I dreamt. Usiku ikifika, he flies. And you know, before I dreamt that, I was from Catalonia. So that must have been God speaking. Let me tell you something, the danger of that. It's good to dream. The danger of that is that when you have a shallow heart, you talk too much. When you talk too much, God will never trust you with anything substantial. You can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. I want to believe that the people seated here are not elected leaders. I'm not talking to elected leaders. I'm talking to a team that God is raising to lift nations. So anywhere you will ever find yourself, never conspire against your leader. Never conspire against your leader. Always put yourself in their shoes. And listen, they will offend you 1,000,000 times. They will offend you. So don't be waiting to say, "Guy, Danny Pastor, he will." So let's move on. He will. He will, and God will use you to really shape you. To really shape you. A number of times he will do things that you do not even believe he can do. Na muda mwingi itakuwa ni Mungu amemtumia kukushape wewe, because there's a place God wants to push you. Sasa utashinda hapo, "Oh, na ni pastor, na ndiye akafanya nikaacha kuhubiri. Oh, ni pastor, na ndiye akafanya nikaacha kanisa." Utaacha kanisa ngapi? No, utaacha ngapi? Utaacha ngapi? Because everywhere you go, listen, any test that you don't sit for, katika ufalme huu tuko huu, we don't skip classes. Here, for them that dropped at class 1 ama class 2, kwa hii ya kimungu hii, mahali uliachia, unaanzianga hapo. So you will live here, you go next. The next is a Catholic. Okay, you move Catholic. That father, even if they don't preach, I don't know what they do. But God will use him to do something. Because God is shaping you for destiny. Praise the name of the Lord. So you better train yourself to be trained. Burden yourself. Sharpen your spirit to be trained. Accept the trainings of God. And the trainings of God are with men. They are done with the hands of men. So issue and the pastor in your offending issue to grow. Let's grow. Tutoke hapo. You ni anasari sana. That's kindergarten. Let's move out of there. Let us settle it that they can. They can. Praise the name of the Lord. Have you ever not known that God does not use anything that was never used by men? God trusts men so much, so that number one, he will entrust you into the hand of a man. Serve that man, so that now you can serve me. But the leaders of today, because they are not leaders, they are elected. They want to serve God, but serve no man. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. God will entrust you under a man, because God himself is God of men. He will entrust you with a man. See how you will cater the business of another man before he entrusts you with your own. Praise the name of the Lord. So that now deals with the attitude. Nafika mapema nipanguze viti kwa nini kwangu. That deals with the attitude. 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 Because I'm not serving in the morning, nitafika kanisani saa 5. If it was your church, utafika saa 5. Nataka sisi wote hapa tukomae. Tukomae. You are the reverends. You are the reverends. If you are the reverend, will you appear at 11? Will you appear at 11? So why do you appear at 11? So why do you appear to find other people worshiping? So why do you appear at 9? Why do you do that? Why do you appear at 9? Because it's not my thing. It's their thing. Si kitu yangu ni kitu yao. Si kitu yangu ni kitu ya? Kitu yao. Let me tell you something. With that kind of an attitude, you will labor in this kingdom until you realize God can look like loving, but can be a hater of men also. You will feel like God frustrated you. Na kitu tabaki nayo ni tukianza nilikuwa. Iyo story is a useless story. Please never say that again. When you hold this mic, never stand here and begin to tell people when you came. It's not when you came, it's how you live. It's not when you came, it's how you live. Please attend, please go to classes. Even them that join in universities, attend lectures, sit down and learn. It's not how you came, it's how you live. It's not how you came. Please don't give us, usituchosha na hiyo story, wachana nayo. Tunajua hata sisi tulikuja tukiwa hivyo madhogodhanio, lakini is how we come out in style, shaped by God, made by God. People that can capture the utterances of the Spirit. That is what we are talking about. That is what we are talking about. So tusichoshane sana. Na nilikuja miaka 100 imepita, nilikuwa na mguu moja nikamea ingine nikiwa hapa. You know those things. Forget about those things. Forget about those things. How is your attitude? How is your attitude? Because the devil can really use your attitude to fight you. In case you didn't know, your attitude will first fight you before it fights the pastor. Your attitude will first fight you before it fights the pastor. When a small announcement has been done here that from tomorrow we are doing fasting, unageukia jirani, kwani hiyo ndio kazi? Kuna kazi nyingine yote tuleta huku. Next week you have a giving, kwani hiyo ndio kazi? Your attitude will first fight you before it fights your enemy, or before it fights your next person. So let us choose, let us purpose to work on our attitudes as leaders. And when the attitude part is corrected, you will attract multitude. In case you didn't know, why unawaambiaka kitu na wakusikizangi is because there is an issue with your attitude. This thing is not physical. This is not physical. Spirit things are spiritual. No wonder Jesus said we did not acknowledge men by order of flesh. We acknowledge men by order of the spirit. The way you stand aright in the spirit, men will see you that way. Praise the name of the Lord. That's why we can stand here, two people, and correct one error. Correct one person. You did wrong. Another one will come and say, you did wrong. This one will choose to hear this one, not hear the other. And they use the same terminologies. So that tells you it's not physical. It is not physical. It is not physical. Those are the two things I want us to deal with today. Issue of proximity. Mimi nimezoeana sana na mchungaji. That is one thing that can hinder you, that you can serve in that commission entire life. And the only thing utabaki ukisema nilizalia watoto wangu wote hapa, wamemaliza university na hakuna kitu kingine unaweza onyesha. Kitu kingine nataka to deal down kitu inaitwa offense. I wanted to settle in our hearts that your pastor can offend you. Yes, na anaweza, sababu ya si malaika. Na hiyo si sababu yako ya kukata kishunje yako ya washirika, hata kama uko na ufunuo. Na tukaona Joab, much as alikuwa na evidence, he didn't use the evidence against his leader. Praise the name of the Lord. Now, what we are finishing with is dealing with our attitudes as a leader. Dealing with your attitude.